Hey guys, okay, so I'm back finishing up this piece about Lodabar and Mephibosheth and David. All right, so today I'm going to be reading 2 Samuel 9 1 through 13. So, like I said, David was friends with Jonathan. Jonathan and him were like brothers. They were homies, right? However, Jonathan's dad, Saul, did not like David. He did like him at one point, but then he stopped liking him. But you got that from the first piece. So in this passage, Jonathan and Saul are now dead. David is now king. And David said, "Is there still anyone left in the house of Saul that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake on behalf of his friend?" Right? Now there was a servant of the house of Saul whose name was Ziba. And they called him to David, and the king said to him, "Are you Ziba?" And he said, I am your servant." And the king said, "Is there not still someone in the house of Saul that I may show kindness of God to him?" Ziba said to the king, "There is still a son of Jonathan. He is crippled in both of his feet." The king said to him, "Where is he?" And Ziba said to the king, "He is in the house of Machir, the son of Ammon, in Lodabar." The king David sent and brought him from the house of Machir and the son of Ammon at Lodabar. And Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, son of Saul, came to David and fell on his face and paid homage. And David said, "Mephibosheth." And he answered, "Behold, I am your servant." And David said to him, "Do not fear. I will show you kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan, and I will restore to you all the land of Saul your father, and you shall eat at my table always." And he paid homage and said, "What is your servant that you should show regard for me? I'm like a dead dog." Let me just stop right there. So, the thing about Lodabar is Lodabar's name itself meant no pastures, no words, no life. Lodabar, they said, was likened to or compared often to a ghetto community, a low poverty community. Lodabar was the place that when people felt hopeless, they just went to Lodabar. So that alone kind of like, wow. Right? We see how deep the meaning of things are, or the names of things are. But the thing that really stuck out to me is that Mephibosheth is the grandson of a king. He has royalty in him. He's living in Lodabar. He begins to take on the characteristics of Lodabar. So even though he's in front of David now, who is also now a king, he still has royal lineage. And so now here he is falling before David talking about, "I'm like a dead dog." What? Like, who you are is still who you are. What's in you is still what's in you. It does not matter where you've been temporarily relocated to. Who you are is still who you are. Then the king said to Ziba, Saul's servant, and said to him, "All that belonged to Saul and all that belonged to his house I have given to your master's grandson." So you living in Lodabar. You living like a homeless dead dog. Yet you have a great reward in this kingdom. You literally had everything that you needed to survive somewhere else because you were relocated because of a bad situation. So when he said that, "I'm going to give it all to the master's grandson, and you and your sons and your servant shall till the land for him and shall bring him the produce, that your master's grandson may have bread to eat. But Mephibosheth, your master's grandson, shall always eat at my table." So David was saying, like, listen, his grandfather left land, his grandfather left homes, his grandfather left servants, all that belongs to him. David didn't even want it. David still is showing honor even in Saul's death. Remember, I said in a previous video that this person was like a coach to him, a mentor to him, and he did him dirty. He was grimy. He got jealous of him, and he let that spirit of jealousy interfere with what he really was called to do in David's life. However, because David was a man of honor, he still, well, he said it was for the sake of Jonathan, because remember, him and Jonathan was buddies. He still looked out for his grandson. He still made sure his grandson was taken care of. And all the things that belonged to Saul, he made sure he gave to Mephibosheth. So it says, now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Then Ziba said to the king, according to all that my lord the king commands his servant, so will your servant do. So Mephibosheth ate at David's table like one of the king's sons, and Mephibosheth had a young son who was named Micah, and all who lived in Ziba's house became his servants. So he lived in Jerusalem and ate always at the king's table. Now he was lame, even though he was lame in both his feet. And so oftentimes we find ourselves in situations that it was not always our fault, right? Mephibosheth, it was not his fault that he winded up in Lodabar. It wasn't his fault that his nurse dropped him. It wasn't his fault that his grandfather was a jealous king who got killed in battle. It wasn't his fault that his father also got killed in that battle. It wasn't his fault that he winded up in Lodabar, and it was not his fault that he thought he had lost all of the things that were rightfully and righteously his. But the thing that I love about this story is so much is that it shows hope. It shows that even in a bad situation, God will remain faithful and God will remember you. It also shows that even when you go through hardships, even when you go through a life tragedy, right? You go through something that is like, dag, this really changed the dynamics of my whole family. This boy had it made. He was a young child being groomed for leadership and being groomed for ruling. However, while in battle, everything changed. The nurse dropped him, and now he's entitled a lame, right? He's entitled a person that cannot walk. He cannot move his feet. He always has to be carried. He always has to be taken care of. But even in all of that, David put it in place where not only are y'all going to work for him and make sure that his land is okay, but he's going to be able to enjoy the produce off of it. Why? Because it rightfully, justly belongs to him. There are many of us who have been in some bad situations. It's many of us that have been in some places that it was not our fault. I could think of one right now that I know a lot of business owners can relate to. COVID. COVID was like Lodabar. I know it was like Lodabar for me. When I tell you the thing that I just knew was about to be the thing that really catapulted, changed some things, really changed some dynamics, was completely taken and stolen and devoured during COVID in my life. Totally. I'm talking about, we lost so much money. We lost so much property because of COVID. And it wasn't our fault. I had nothing to do with that virus. I was at work minding my business. I get a call from the city of Philadelphia, Mrs. Maxwell, all child care centers have to shut down starting tomorrow. Literally, overnight, everything changed. I'm talking about 25 employees calling me. What are we supposed to do? How are we going to get paid? You're talking about, it was so frantic and it was so weighty. It felt so heavy because although I'm not God, I'm not the state, I'm not the governor, I had no control. These were 25 people who depended on me every 2 weeks to pay them. This was 25 people and their families that depended on our business. This was a community of over 100 children that depended on my facility so that their parents could go to work. So when all the phone calls started coming in, well, all the bills, because some of our bills, well, all of our bills were on auto pay. All of our bills were on auto pay. So that Wednesday we got sent home. That Monday, those bills still hit my account. However, those parents stopped paying. They were home with their children. The child care facilities were closed. It was no need for them to pay for child care because their kids weren't there. And so everything started to, it was like clockwork. This was hitting, that was hitting. Now, mind you, some of our accounts, because these were the accounts that had like the bulk of our money, we continued to pay our staff. We continued to pay our staff. We continued to make payroll for at least 2 pay cycles. But after that, that's when the account started getting lower and lower and lower. That's when, we were still trying to have conversations with people like, hold on, we're all trying to navigate this together. There's no way we could continue to pay this. We want to put this on hold. We want to put this on pause. And it just seemed like it was a cycle that just continued for so long. And then the aftermaths of that cycle continued for so long. And it wasn't our fault. However, there's a place you could get to in life, in business, in ministry, in marriage, that you say, you know what? I'm coming out of this. I'm coming out of this. Yeah, it wasn't my fault that I got in it, but I'm going to take control on getting out of it. I'm going to change my mindset. I'm going to change my vocabulary. I'm going to change the way I look at it. Because you got to remember, even when he came to David, in his mindset, he was like, I don't deserve this. I'm like a dead dog. He fell to him. He humbled himself before him. And David had to kind of tell him like, no, I'm giving you your grandfather's stuff because it rightfully belongs to you. And so with us coming out of Lodabar, the things that rightfully belong to us, the things that we have lost, the things that we felt like we were cheated out of, I feel like in this season, we are not only going to get it back, but we're going to get it back with everything that was originally assigned to it. I promise you, if you change the way you're looking at this situation, if you change the mindset, if you even change the people, because you got to remember, Mephibosheth was living in the house with 2 other people. They was comfortable living in Lodabar. They welcomed him to come live with them because that was their environment. They wanted him to come to a place that meant no pastures, no life, no greenage, no nothing. Actually, Lodabar was the exact opposite of the promised land. The exact opposite of the promised land was Lodabar. And so these 2 people who let him come live with them, they were like, cool, because we all in this together. But when he changed his environment, when he changed his mindset, and when he came into agreement with what David told him, no, this stuff rightfully belongs to you, Mephibosheth was able to have a better life and a better mindset. I promise you, if you change your mindset and you change your words today, the Lodabar situation that you've been in for so long that has produced no fruit, that has been no pasture, there's been no life, there's been no greenage. I promise you, if you change your mindset and you change your words today, you can come out of Lodabar and get into your promised land.